People who work in hospital. What is the worst thing you have seen a patient go through? When I was a senior in high school, I took a CNA course through a vocational program. We spent the first half of the year learning theory in a classroom, and the second half doing clinical hours at a state-run nursing home. It was old, drafty, and always smelled like boiled cabbage and industrial cleaner. Most of the patients were Medicaid funded, with little or no family involvement. Some of them had been there for over a decade. That place was full of ghosts, and not the kind you can see. There was one woman there. I'll call her Mrs. Langford. She was 89 years old, had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, advanced dementia, and a DNR order. She had once had a full life, 8 children, a husband, siblings, but they were all gone. Every single person she had loved or raised or shared blood with had died before her. She had outlived them all. She had been admitted 4 years before I met her. Back then, she still had her mind, more or less, enough to understand she couldn't safely live alone anymore, enough to make the choice to check herself in. I only knew her in the last chapter, when the world had already started to slip away from her. Most days she was confused. She thought she was back in her childhood home, or that she was late for work, or that she was supposed to be picking the kids up from school. But there were lucid days too. Not many, and less as time went on, but they came. On those days, she would remember everything. Her cancer, her body slowly turning against her, and the loneliness. She'd ask where her babies were. I tried to explain, but she already knew. She just wanted to hear someone say it. I had 8, she told me once, staring at the ceiling. All gone, even the little one. He was my last. She didn't cry when she said it. She just sounded tired, like grief was no longer sharp, just a weight she carried around until she forgot it again. She would only eat when I was there, no one else. The nurses tried, but she'd turn her face away or spit it out. But if I sat with her, held her hand, talked softly, she'd take a few bites. Some days that's all it was, a few bites, a few sips of water. I didn't do it because anyone asked me to. I just couldn't stomach the idea of her starving to death while people moved around her like she didn't exist. So I started coming in after school, sometimes weekends, just to sit with her, talk to her, try to get some pudding or jello into her system. She liked tapioca, hated chocolate, said it reminded her of something she didn't want to remember. More, one day she looked straight at me and said, "You're back." I smiled and told her I was. "Mama always said you'd come back," she whispered, and then fell asleep with her hand in mine. I didn't correct her. Her lucid days got further and further apart. By spring, she stopped recognizing even me, but she'd still let me feed her, still hold my hand. There were days when I thought she wasn't in there anymore, just a shell with a faint flicker behind her eyes. But then she'd hum a song, or laugh at something I said, and I'd know she was still fighting to stay human, even if only for another moment. She died 2 weeks before I graduated, quietly, in her sleep. I wasn't there when it happened. I came in after school and walked past her room and saw the door open, the bed stripped, her few belongings packed in a cardboard box. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just staring. There was a photo frame sitting on the windowsill, an old black and white picture of her and her sister. They were young, in matching dresses, smiling wide at the camera. I picked it up, looked at the woman on the right, and felt my stomach twist. We didn't look exactly alike, but there was a resemblance. The shape of the eyes, the jawline. Enough that, in her confusion, I think she thought I was her sister. Maybe that's why she trusted me. Maybe that's why she ate when I was there. I don't know if she thought I was her sister every time, but it makes sense now. All the moments that felt like more than patient and caregiver. She wasn't just being polite, she was holding on to something familiar. Someone. People imagine all sorts of painful ways to die. Violence, fire, drowning. But what I saw happen to Mrs. Langford was worse in a way I wasn't prepared for. She died in pieces. First her memory, then her dignity, then her appetite, her awareness, and finally her breath. Over and over again, she was made to remember she was alone, then forget, then remember again. Until one day, she didn't have to anymore. I still think about her, about the way she'd say, "Thank you, dear," every time I wiped her mouth or brushed her hair, about how even in the final stretch of a long and brutal life, she still managed to be kind. She deserved so much.